Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well. Today we'll be going through a spicy deck list, a Gren Maju Stromberg deck. One of my favourite decks of all time, and it's running 60 cards, so it's extra spicy. We'll be running through the deck list today, and I'll be doing some gameplay with a very similar deck list on Master Duel next week, so make sure to tune in for that. Without further ado, let's get straight into the deck list. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the deck list, please do feel free to give it a go. The Stromberg cards aren't too expensive, but they're extremely fun to play and can catch people off guard. The Golden Castle of Stromberg is an absolutely insane card, and I just love running it. Okay, so jumping into the deck list, we're going to first start off with our monsters. So first we have one copy of Glife the Phantom Bird. This lets you search your Stromberg, and if it's summoned, you can also pop a back row. Usually you'll just be using it as a fourth copy of the Stromberg, since it's such a good card. On similar lines, we also have two Hexe Trude. Now this is a amazing card. You can special summon it from the deck. You can also special summon Glife when Stromberg is on the field. It pops one and you can attack twice, well, on monsters. It's just a generically good card and it is a rank 8. We're playing a lot of level 8 cards here with a few level 8 XEs, so it is probably one of the core pieces of the deck. You can run 3 of these, but I found when you draw them, it's very upsetting. You really don't want to be drawing Hexy, and it's a sad day when you banish both, but sometimes that's how banish decks work. Next, we run another big contender. We run 3 Gren Maju de Eiza. Now, if you don't know Gren Maju, he gains 400 attack and defense for each banished card you have. And if you don't know Stromberg, each standby you have to banish 10. So you can imagine this guy gets very, very big. Now, the only problem with this is there's no way to really search this card. It is basically a hard draw, and you can run Small World, but my brain is ironically too small to run that, so instead I just hope to draw into them. Alongside Gren Maju, we have 3 Gizmek, the Sky Slasher. Forgive me. So he can be special summoned from hand or grave by banishing 8 face down from the top of the deck. Once again, powers up the Gren Maju, and you have a lot of banished material by having 60 cards, so you can summon this guy quite a few times, plus he is a level 8, so you can use him for your Xyz plays. Now moving on, we run a bit of a danger engine. We run 3 Danger Nessie. This one you can probably end up cutting since it's a level 7, but it helps search out your other dangers, such as Danger Bigfoot. Again, level 8, you can special summon him if you get lucky enough, and if you end up discarding him, you can pop a face up, so it's quite nice. Along for the same reasons, we have Danger Thunderbird. Once again, level 8, you can pop a set if it's discarded, if you get unlucky, and yeah, lets you go into your XZ's plays, and it's a big boy. So we also run a Kaiju package. This helps against the meta if they bring up a big boss monster. So first we run to Dogoran. Once again, this is a level 8, and you can special summon it. And it's the same with Gadarla and Gameciel. These are all level 8, you can special summon them, and also it's great for breaking your opponent's board. Plus it works well with a couple of the monsters we have coming up. We also run one Jizukiru, Jizm. We run one Jizm, just because we run the Kaiju spell that lets you special summon 2 Kaijus, one on your opponent's field and one on your field, but they have to be different. So in the off chance, if you banish kind of all your copies of 1 or even 2 of the Kaijus, you still have 1 backup. And yes, you can probably cut this since it's not a level 8, but I like to run it because it's happened more often than not when I've banished my other Kaijus. Along similar lines, we run Lava Golem since, once again, it's a level 8. Can you sense a pattern here? And you contribute 2 to break boards. Not much more to say on that one. Now this one's one of my favourites. It's Alpha Master of the Beasts. And once again, level 8. And you can special summon it when your opponent has more attack on their monsters than you do. What you can do is you can either use one of the Lava Golems or one of the Kaijus and special summon that guy, Mr. Alpha, and his effect is you can bounce monsters back to hand. So you can bounce the Alpha and one of the Kaijus back to hand, and then you get another way. Well, get another Kaiju to break their board a bit further. Next we run to Eater of Millions. This is a hard card to out for some decks since when it's attacked you can banish the monster attacking it face down, or if it attacks and vice versa. And it also gains attack for every face down banished card, including your opponent's. So you can get some good attack values out of this, and once again it is just hard to out. In some matchups your extra deck will not be as useful, so you don't worry too much about what you banish. And lastly, we have a generic 3 Ash Blossom. Do I need to say any more? So as you can see, it's a very chunky deck with them all double sleeved. Unfortunately, some of them are out of the sleeves at the moment because I'm trying out a new deck list, but I've run this deck quite a few times at locals and it has done me quite well. Let's move on to the spells. So to start, we have a generic 3 Super Polys. This should be self-explanatory. It's great for breaking boards. That's about it. And we also run 3 Interrupted Kaiju Slumber. Once again, amazing for breaking boards, and it lets you special summon at level 8 from your deck, being one of the Kaijus. And so it can be great, but it can also be used to bait negations. Now, its secondary effect, where when it's in the graveyard you can banish it to add a Kaiju, is great as well. Because we run the Danger package, if this gets discarded, it's not a sad day. Next turn you can just add a Kaiju and then be happy with what you discarded. We also run 3 trade-in. As you saw with the monsters, there are a lot of level 8 monsters, so we can quite easily get trade-in off. Be very scared of Ash Blossom or any spell negates, so usually you want to be using one of your other spells before using this, but when it pops off, it is very, very useful. It can also turn your Hexe Trude into, from a dead card into a draw 2. We also run 2 Pot of Desires, mainly to beef up our Gren Maju, and draw 2 is always nice. We have a lot of cards to banish, so we can take advantage of that. Now we have 1 Change of Heart. This is great for baiting the gates or letting you go for an OTK play by stealing their monster. Especially if you kaiju over something, steal it, and then you can Xyz into a rank 8 using that. We run 1 Triple Tactics Talent, just such a good card. I mean, it really helps if your plays are disrupted, but you could probably cut it from this deck since a few hand traps do absolutely nothing against this deck, but it's so powerful I couldn't help but running it. Then we have Raigeki, need I say more? Monster Reborn, again, very self-explanatory. It's great for grabbing a level 8 if you need it, and if your Gren Maju's gone to the grave, you can bring it back with this boy. Foolish Burial is great. Mainly you want to be sending the Gizmek from deck, so you can special summon it from grave. So basically it's a 4th copy of Gizmek. Here we have a Called by the Grave. This is mainly for when you use your trade-in or your Stromberg, just so to make sure you can OTK and they don't stop you on that turn. It's quite useful, although once again you can probably cut it if you don't have it or if you feel like another card would fit. We also run a Harpies, similar to Raigeki. I don't need to explain this one too much. Card Destruction. Now, Card Destruction is a fun one, mainly because it triggers all your danger effects when they get discarded by this, and that is the main time you want to be using it, or if you have an absolutely dead hand, you can refresh it with this here. It's not the best card in the deck, but it is a fun one, so I like to include it. Now we run a Terraforming, which will be grabbing the next card on the list. Basically a 5th copy of Stromberg, including Glife. And now here, best till last, we have our Golden Castle of Stromberg. Now, this is such an insane card. If you haven't read it before, which a lot of people haven't, I'll read it to you now. Once per turn during your standby phase, you must banish 10 cards from the top of your deck face down. This is not optional, or this card is destroyed. Fine, we've got 60 cards, and our cards get powered up by banished. During your main phase, you can special summon one monster from your deck that specifically lists the card Golden Castle of Stromberg. So that includes Hexe Trude and Glife, which are very powerful cards, especially Hexe. You mainly want to be summoning Hexe from this. And you cannot normal summon or set the turn you activate this effect, even if this card leaves the field. You can only use the effect of Stromberg once per turn. Now this is the big bit. When your opponent monster declares an attack, destroy the attacking monster, and if you do, inflict damage to your opponent equal to half the attack of that monster had on the field. That's not once per turn, by the way. So as long as this card is face up on the field, your opponent can't attack you. Well, they can, but they'll lose their monster and take damage. The amount of times, especially in Master Duel, you have people just not reading Stromberg and attacking and attacking and attacking again is ridiculous. And it's even happened in real life where people will declare an attack. I'll go, okay, Stromberg activates, and then they attack again because they think it's once per turn. If they asked, I would tell them, since I have to, but they just refuse to read. So this is a brilliant card if your opponent doesn't read. Of course, if it gets removed, it's a sad day, but that's why we run 5 copies, essentially. And honestly, it's the backbone of this deck. It's such an amazing card. It's brilliant. Now, moving on to the extra deck. We'll first start off with our Super Poly targets. We have some generic ones. We have Mud Dragon of the Swamp. We have Starving Venom Fusion Dragon, Predaplant Triff, and Draco Stapelia. Now, these are all pretty generic. You can add extras in to counter what you're seeing at your locals. At one point, I had some branded stuff in here just because I kept running into branded, but these are the generic ones you kind of want to keep in. Of course, if you want to remove the Super Poly from the main deck and add in some extra monsters, I'd add in a few link monsters like the Nightmare, Phoenix, and possibly Access Code and IP, just so on the off chance you have that many materials on board, you can use them. We'll go into the Xyz monsters now. So we have a bit of an OTK package for when we get 2 rank 8s on the field. So essentially you'll go into Draglubion, which lets you special summon 1 number dragon and then attach another number dragon. You'll be special summoning Numeron Dragon and attaching number 38, which lets you detach this and it will gain 9,000 attack if these are the only 2 ranks on the field. Of course, if the opponent has any Xyz monsters, it will gain 1,000 attack for each rank. Of course, with these two combined, it's 9, so it's 9,000, but if they have more, it's insane. If you can manage to empty their board with any of your board breakers, and then get this out on the field, it's a pretty quick win. Next, we also run some generically good rank 8s like Dingirsu, which can protect your monsters from being destroyed, and you can also send 1 card from the opponent's field to the graveyard, which can be quite useful. We also run number 68, the Sky Prism. This is to stop any graveyard decks that might possibly be popping up, and is also quite a big beat stick, and can help you get into Zeus. Speaking of Zeus, we have Mr. Zeus here, and we also run Pain Gainer and the 7 Sins. Now, Pain Gainer, you can use a rank 8, 9, or 10 Dark Xyz monster, which is almost all of your Xyz monsters, to summon it for free. And then you can overlay the 7 Sins on the Pain Gainer, and then of course afterwards lay the Zeus on top. This is just to give Zeus a couple more materials so that you can clear the board twice rather than once. Quite useful. Would recommend running that package. And lastly, we run a couple of link monsters. We run a Relinquished Anima, mainly because I love it, but it also works well with our Eater of Millions. We run a Muckraker from the Underworld. This is great if your Gren Maju gets sent to the graveyard. You can special summon it back by discarding 1. Unfortunately, you can't link climb with it since it can't be used as link material the turn it's link summoned, so that's why I don't run Access Code instead of this last card here. And we just run a generic Nightmare Unicorn to spin a card that might be problematic against us. So that's it for the main deck. Let's hop into the side deck. We'll start with 3-Dimension Shifter. This can sometimes really shut down enemy decks, and of course, you don't really care about the graveyard very much, so you're happy to use this whenever you can. We also run 3 Denko Sekka for those tricky back row decks like Labyrinth and Traptrix. Can really just shut them down or just slow them down enough so that you can pop off with your rank 8s. We also run 3 Droll and Lockbird. This is kind of self-explanatory at the moment, especially with 6 Samurais running about. Even since the last ban list, I'm still a bit scared of them, so I put this in the side just in case you run into those matchups. Then we also run 3 Cosmic Cyclone. Not only is this great back row removal, it is also very handy against Runic, especially after the ban list, since you only really need to see 2 of them to completely shut down their strategy. And last but certainly not least, we run a Teekboo, 3 of them. Now this doesn't really affect your deck much at all, and this is really here for if your opponent thinks they're smart and will let you go first. I think the best part about this deck is because of Stromberg's effect, you really can go first or second. So if you think this can shut down their deck, just chuck it in from the side. Very helpful card. If you've made it this far in the video, please feel free to hit subscribe, new videos each week, gameplay of this deck coming next week as well. And as always, happy dueling. You were dealt a bad hand.